A.6.3 mandates a structured and continuous approach to awareness and training. Organizations must develop educational programs that reach all personnel, regardless of their function or seniority, and tailor the depth of content according to role sensitivity. Every employee, from executives to entry-level staff, must understand the organization's security policies, acceptable use rules, and incident reporting expectations. Technical specialists, on the other hand, require more advanced training aligned to their responsibilities. Training cannot be a one-time event. It must evolve as new technologies, threats, and business processes emerge. This control emphasizes that awareness is not a compliance formality, but a living element of culture that keeps vigilance sharp and consistent. Effective awareness programs share a common set of themes. Employees should know how to classify and handle data, recognizing the distinction between public, internal, confidential, and restricted information. They must learn safe habits in email use, network access, and password management. Recognizing phishing attempts and social engineering tactics is critical, as these remain the most frequent entry points for attackers. Finally, training should explain how to report suspicious activity and escalate incidents. When staff understand that early reporting is encouraged, not punished, the organization gains a powerful human sensor network that complements its technical monitoring systems. The method of delivery is just as important as the content. Traditional classroom sessions and e-learning modules build foundational understanding, while microlearning segments, short, focused lessons delivered regularly, keep concepts fresh. Posters, digital reminders, and gamified simulations reinforce key messages between formal sessions. Scenario-based workshops that simulate real incidents are particularly effective, allowing teams to practice decision-making under pressure. Leadership involvement adds credibility. When executives participate in awareness sessions, employees see that security is not just a compliance obligation, but a strategic priority. The goal is engagement, not endurance. Education that feels relevant, not repetitive. Organizations must be able to demonstrate that their awareness programs are effective. Evidence can include attendance logs, course completion certificates, and participation rates. Phishing simulations provide quantitative data showing improvements in click-through or report rates over time. Surveys and assessments measure comprehension, helping identify topics where understanding remains weak. Reductions in user-caused incidents, such as accidental data exposure or unauthorized downloads, offer practical validation that awareness is translating into behavior change. Metrics are not just numbers. They tell the story of cultural progress, helping management prove that investment in awareness pays tangible dividends. Awareness programs must also be tailored by audience type. Executives need concise briefings focused on governance, risk, and leadership responsibilities. IT administrators require deep technical training in secure configurations, monitoring tools, and incident response. Human resources and legal teams must understand compliance, privacy, and confidentiality obligations. Contractors and temporary staff who may not go through full onboarding should receive targeted micro-training emphasizing acceptable use and reporting protocols. This segmentation ensures that every participant receives information relevant to their duties, reducing fatigue while maximizing practical impact. Linkages between A.6.3 and Clause 7.2 on competence and awareness are critical. Training should close specific knowledge gaps identified through performance evaluations or incident reviews. Results must be recorded and tied to performance management systems so that awareness becomes part of career development, not an optional exercise. Training should also be an integral part of onboarding. New hires should complete mandatory awareness modules before being granted system access. Maintaining accurate, auditable records of who has completed what training allows auditors to verify compliance and enables managers to track progress at both the individual and organizational levels. Organizations face several common challenges in executing awareness programs effectively. Repetitive, generic content often leads to fatigue, with staff tuning out annual training cycles. Materials can quickly become outdated if not refreshed to reflect emerging threats or organizational changes. Non-technical roles, such as administrative or facilities staff, are sometimes neglected, leaving critical gaps in coverage. The biggest oversight, however, is failing to measure real behavior change, treating completion rates as success instead of assessing whether employees actually act differently. Overcoming these pitfalls requires creativity, relevance, and leadership engagement to ensure training evolves as dynamically as the threats it aims to prevent. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Control A.6.4 provides the necessary counterpart to awareness and training, a clear, consistent disciplinary process. While A.6.3 focuses on prevention through education, A.6.4 focuses on accountability through consequence. The control requires organizations to establish a formal framework that outlines what happens when individuals violate security policies, whether intentionally or through negligence. The goal is not punishment for its own sake, but reinforcement of responsibility. A fair disciplinary process ensures that everyone, from executives to contractors, understands that security obligations carry weight. It deters carelessness, corrects behavior, and demonstrates to auditors and regulators that the organization treats information security breaches with the seriousness they deserve. The scope of A.6.4 covers all forms of security-related misconduct or negligence. This includes minor lapses, such as failing to lock a workstation, as well as severe violations, like unauthorized disclosure of confidential data. The control also applies to breaches of acceptable use, mishandling of physical or digital assets, and non-compliance with privacy or confidentiality clauses. Importantly, disciplinary measures must be consistent, proportionate, and compliant with local labor laws and organizational ethics. This ensures that enforcement strengthens culture rather than eroding trust. A transparent, well-communicated disciplinary framework turns potential conflict into accountability, providing clarity about expectations and consequences before problems arise. Disciplinary measures typically follow a graduated structure based on the severity and recurrence of the violation. Minor, first-time issues may warrant verbal or written warnings designed to correct behavior through coaching. Repeated or more serious infractions might lead to suspension, reassignment, or revocation of access privileges while investigation proceeds. Severe or deliberate breaches, such as data theft, sabotage, or gross negligence, may justify termination or even legal action, especially when contractual or criminal laws have been violated. Each case should be documented thoroughly, with decisions justified and approved by appropriate management levels. This structured escalation ensures fairness and reinforces that enforcement is a measured, deliberate process rather than arbitrary punishment. Integration with human resources governance is essential for A.6.4 to function effectively. HR departments ensure that disciplinary processes comply with labor laws, union agreements, and internal fairness policies. Confidentiality must be preserved throughout investigations and record-keeping, protecting the dignity and privacy of those involved. Employees should have the right to appeal decisions, providing an additional safeguard for fairness and due process. In global organizations, HR teams must adapt disciplinary frameworks to local legal and cultural contexts while maintaining consistent principles of accountability. Proper alignment between HR, legal, and information security departments ensures that enforcement supports both compliance and organizational values. Documentation provides the evidentiary backbone for demonstrating compliance with A.6.4. Organizations must maintain policy statements defining disciplinary expectations, thresholds, and processes. Case records should capture the nature of violations, investigations performed, decisions made, and actions taken. Approvals from authorized personnel, such as HR representatives or department heads, should accompany every case. These records must be retained securely and confidentially, balancing privacy laws with the need for auditability. When auditors review disciplinary frameworks, they look for both policy documentation and proof of consistent application. The presence of these records communicates not only procedural maturity, but also cultural credibility. A.6.4 and A.6.3 operate in symbiosis. Awareness and training programs establish the knowledge baseline. Employees learn the rules, procedures, and expectations that define acceptable behavior. The disciplinary process enforces these lessons, ensuring that violations have meaningful consequences. Data from disciplinary cases can feed back into awareness programs, highlighting areas where misunderstandings or recurring issues indicate gaps in training. In turn, regular reinforcement of expectations through education helps reduce the frequency of disciplinary incidents. Together, they form a continuous improvement cycle: prevention through awareness, accountability through enforcement, and evolution through feedback. Examples of violations that fall under A.6.4 are common across industries. Repeated password sharing, despite multiple awareness sessions, demonstrates disregard for policy and triggers escalating consequences. Mishandling confidential client information, whether through email misdelivery or improper storage, may result in warnings or formal reprimands. Persistent negligence in patching or system maintenance may lead to reassignment or suspension for technical staff responsible. Refusing to follow incident escalation procedures can compromise response efforts, warranting disciplinary review. These cases show how enforcement is not arbitrary, but directly tied to risks that threaten organizational security and compliance obligations. Without a formal disciplinary process, organizations face serious risks. Employees may come to view policies as optional, leading to a decline in overall discipline. Inconsistent or selective enforcement can create resentment, legal exposure, and claims of discrimination. Regulators and auditors may question whether the organization truly takes its ISMS commitments seriously. Worst of all, insider threats may go unchecked, emboldened by the absence of real consequences. A documented, consistently applied disciplinary framework eliminates these vulnerabilities by setting clear expectations and demonstrating that the organization's commitment to security is more than rhetorical. A strong disciplinary process also delivers assurance value to stakeholders. Clients and partners gain confidence knowing that the organization enforces its policies transparently and fairly. Regulators recognize cultural maturity when enforcement frameworks balance accountability with employee rights. Internally, staff trust the system when they see that violations are handled consistently, not politically. For management, these measures prove accountability at every level of the organization, transforming governance from policy statements into demonstrable action. The fairness and consistency of enforcement are as important as the severity of the response. They sustain morale while maintaining deterrence. Together, A.6.3 and A.6.4 form the behavioral backbone of the ISMS. Awareness and training build knowledge and vigilance, ensuring that employees understand threats and their role in prevention. The disciplinary process ensures that this knowledge carries weight, turning awareness into accountability. These controls foster a culture of integrity and continuous learning, one where staff feel responsible for protecting information and understand both the rewards of compliance and the consequences of neglect. They also create a closed feedback loop for auditors and management, demonstrating that the human factor in security is not left to chance, but managed with structure, fairness, and intent. With these foundations in place, the organization is prepared to address the next phase of the employee life cycle: termination and post-employment safeguards, covered in A.6.5 and A.6.6.